Hello, I am Air. I use he, him.
I'm Jerika. I use she, her.
Hey, I'm Ooze. I use he, him.
And I'm Mazz. I use they, them. And we played a really great game last week, and we're going to talk about it.
Yes, we did.
No, don't do the music.
Insight check.
You can't include the music because then there are like copyright issues.
that hot new remix.
You gotta do it like the YouTube stuff where they speed the audio up 1.5 times so the algorithm doesn't catch it.
Just put the video just slightly offset.
Flip it backwards.
Or like mirror the video. Flip it around.
Exactly.
Skew it just 5% to the right.
Instead of talking about how people steal
Things.
works of art and music
Media.
from each other, let's talk about Star Wars.
Can I say
First, we must do the other thing.
Oh, yeah.
Say that this is Insight Check, where we delve into the dungeon of your bad decisions to retrieve the treasure of wisdom. Though this week there will be no dungeons and there will be no treasure. There will just be Jedi temples and lightsabers, the lightsabers of your wisdom.
There will be a
we played
dungeon.
Star Wars. There will be a dungeon.
Because first we must do the dungeon crawl.
All right, who wants to get on in there first?
I'll go over the weekend. This past weekend, which would have been the Memorial Day weekend here in the States. We, being a bunch of friends in the Shadow Council, the C-Team fandom, decided it would be a good idea to play Uno for 48 hours straight on stream to benefit Child's Play. Turns out that's a really good idea. We didn't actually know if it was going to be a thing we could do or not. But we did. We did really well. We had set a $2,000 goal originally because we had zero clue how many people would actually come watch us sit and play Uno for 2 days straight. But we ended up, it was a straggler donation, and we ended up hitting $5,226.03.
Yay.
Our $2,000
That's
goal.
awesome. Yay, good job.
All benefiting Child's Play charity. Plug.
Fantastic.
Child's Play is great. That was fun. And then I had another small dungeon crawl. Very small. Google has updated their dice roller. If y'all didn't know this.
Yep.
I was unaware. And sometimes when you're working on character sheets while you're on the clock at work, you need to roll dice. And you can't use D&D Beyond at work or on your phone because, well, mobile is a little rough. But Google has a great dice roller. It's got all the dice. It's got them by color, and you can add them. You can add extra numbers to it. It was a pleasant little surprise today for me.
Google's always got your hookup.
I've just headed on to Google and given it a try, and I rolled 2d20, and I got a 6 and a 9.
Hey, nice.
See? It's great. What more could you
Where's
want?
PP, though?
Wait, what?
Don't worry about it.
Did you not listen to this week's episode of Insight Check Pod?
So it'll be an Easter egg for you then.
Yeah.
Woohoo! I'm almost done. I swear. My dog ate my homework. I have a dungeon crawl that is tangentially related to our primary topic of interest this evening. If our eventual discussion of the Fantasy Flight Star Wars tabletop RPG game system interests you, which we are going to head into talking to in just a bit, and you were like, dang, I can't get any of them custom dice due to pandemics or what have you, / I play online on the Discords. Well, I have a Discord bot for you. In keeping with Star Wars Dom, it's D1-C3.
The bot I found
Yes.
that you're not now taking credit for finding, yes?
So I'm riding the coattails, standing on the shoulders of giants. Yeah, Mazz introduced this to me, and I'm just riffing on it. Yes, D1C3, or DICE, is a bot that lets you roll all of the custom Star Wars system dice. And it's nice and quick to add into your Discord server. So if you're hoping to try out the system we're going to talk about very soon, it is a good option to go with. Thank you, Mazz.
I guess I'll just plug The Mandalorian because I've been obsessed with it for the past week. Great characters, great technology, great casting, just great directing, great everything. If you were on the fence about it, just watch it.
It's real good.
You can have not seen a single War of Star and enjoy this.
You can. But it has a lot of really good callbacks.
It does.
So
it do. It sure do.
Yeah.
A lot of the like Star Wars story kind of spin-off things have still related to the main franchise of movies like Solo and Rogue One. This one, you really don't need to know much about the whole Star Wars mythos, though obviously you do because it is so saturated in pop culture. But you could walk into it having never seen, as you said, a War Star and enjoy it thoroughly. It's very much...
You won't squeal as loudly as I did when I saw Baby Yoda.
Always a cute little bugger. It is very much Lone Wolf and Cub. It is very much a spaghetti western in space. And it doesn't pretend to be anything else. It just executes that so good, so real good that.
And I would say watch the making of as well. It reveals the star player in the whole series, which is called The Volume.
Ooh.
Oh wait, I didn't watch the behind the scenes stuff. Is there?
I highly recommend it.
Lord, now I gotta put something else on the list. The ever-growing list of things I need to watch.
It's only four half-hour episodes. It's 2 hours.
Oh, okay, that's easy peasy.
It's very low commitment.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool. Mazz, anything, or should we get right into it?
Well, no, I don't have a dungeon crawl, but something else you can do if you know absolutely nothing about Star Wars, like myself, is to run a Star Wars game. I'm not kidding. So
Run a Star Wars game magnificently.
Oh, I'm glad you had fun. I've been learning the Fantasy Flight Games system from Edge of the Empire. Their own proprietary dice, but once you've got your head around those, there's some good videos around YouTube. We can link some when we post the episode. It's so easy. It's such an easy system. It's fantastic. And the system's interchangeable. There are 3 base games, and they use the same rules and the same dice for all the games.
Age of Rebellion, Edge of the Empire, and Force and Destiny.
Yeah, because I know Jerika's been reading Force and Destiny for that sweet Jedi shtick.
No, Air's been reading it. I'm very bad at reading rule books. I'm extremely bad. I am a kinesthetic learner, so I learn best when I'm doing things and people are interacting with me, and, I learn best at the table, basically. So I hate sitting down and reading rule books.
Same. So picking this up to run it was a thing, really. It's really straightforward. There are 2 pools of dice, and they're color-coded. You have, dice for positive dice, negative dice. So your positive dice are for, your skills, abilities, any advantages you may have. And then your negative are, the challenges you may face and any setbacks you may have. And then you get different symbols. There's triumph is the best, success, advantage. There's despair, failure, and threat. And different symbols cancel each other out. And you can see as soon as you've rolled the dice whether you've succeeded or failed on a check straight away. Everyone can see it. There's no thinking about hidden DCs or fudging the numbers or anything like that. It's just there on the table. But what I really, really like about this system is within that result, there's scope to do more. So if you have some advantages, you can choose to heal your character from some strain, which is a mental hit point tally. Or you can use it to help give other players advantage by granting boost dice. Or you can use it to change something about the scene, notice something or affect something. And the same with the triumph. You really feel like you've done something because you can one-shot kill a minion or do something else really cool. And it makes it so much more narrative. How did you lot find that aspect of it?
I was shocked at how good it was at capturing a Star Wars action sequence. It really felt like a Star Wars battle was playing out because it is a very narrative. It's setting kind of the level of abstraction at the level of the narrative as opposed to something more like a D&D, which might be a little bit more in the weeds where it's breaking it down to individual actions. I'm casting this spell. I'm swinging my sword. This is very much my action was can I run into the cockpit and try to take over the ship that we're trying to hijack so like I can bring up the automated weapons and blast all the droids that are trying to keep us out. You know, that felt like a very Star Wars thing to do as opposed to just, I shoot my blaster again. Or
I would
like,
agree for sure.
Yeah.
Or like trying to get like the one troublemaking NPC that was still aboard the ship out, like Jerika buried an axe in his chest and then kicked him down the rampway. Like that again felt very Star Wars to me.
It felt fluid, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Like
yes.
In D&D where you often have, you know, chunk. In the Star Wars, it felt really fluid. Not only in the fact that, you know, it was narrative, and the fact you could say, hey, I want to try this, and then your GM can say yes or no, but also, like, if you wanted to help out another player, you know, there's ways to do that that don't involve you going, okay, I want as a bonus action to do this to help this next player. Like, you could set the scene up to help someone as part of your action, and then depending on how you rolled, that could be a thing. I like that.
There was also the thing that initiative, at least we're kind of in combat, which we don't need to be, but initiative when we're doing it is not set in stone. It's basically here's where the player turns are and here's where the game master turns are, and you can choose who gets to go when. So if it makes sense for someone, you're like, hey, I've got a plan. I'm going to do this. Can the rest of you provide me cover or something? Let me go, you know, run off in this direction and provide covering fire. It's not like, oh, well, that's never going to work because I'm not allowed to take my turn right now. It's, you know, I didn't roll a good enough number. So that was also very freeing as well.
It's more flexible and you can sort of work together more, I think. Mm-hmm. Like if you think somebody in your group needs more boost dice, like from your advantages, like you can go first and try to get those dice. Like you can kind of not really manipulate the dice, but like be very strategic about it, mm-hmm. but also like work together.
And also what was really nice is that's not set in stone every round. You can rotate mm-hmm. the order of, like, you have a bunch of slots and you can go wherever the first round and then change it the second round because the situation's changed. And I think that still makes it more dynamic, because I think that's a lot of the problem I have with D&D combat and why I'm very tired by it, is that it's always the same thing, and it's like, I cast this spell, and it's like everyone's going at the same time each round, and it just becomes formulaic, whereas this is like, it's a story playing out and you adapt to it.
For sure.
And that's definitely like when you get more into like the kind of simulationist vein, which 5e, I would say, swings a little bit more to than the narrative side of things. It is trying to be as strategic, as stripped down and bare bones as you can get it, but strategic, kind of war game when the combat kicks in.
Tell the people about Cappuccino Droid.
I played a medical droid. We actually just grabbed a bunch of pre-generated characters to make things nice and fast, and made some tweaks to them. But we were being chased we had pissed off the local hut on Tatooine, that in the Moss, not Isley, that we were in, Moss Shuda. Yeah, Moss Shuda.
Like shoot her.
But don't, because she's a very nice gal. So we were chased into a cantina and we all had like a chance to kind of hide or prepare an ambush or whatever. So I just kind of yoga posed my droid body into a pretzel and pretended to be a really fancy space cappuccino machine on the bar. And
then what happened?
And they were surprised when a grenade shot out of it.
What happened? Our awesome GM let it happen. That's what happened.
Yes. I got to make a coffee
and they got angry
check.
And they made you start leaking.
They did. They hit me real hard. But that's part of the fun. I wanted to get back to one of the things Mazz was talking about, which there's a set of proprietary dice for this game, which I think is maybe the biggest roadblock for people, because if you played other like TTRPGs, you probably have your standard set of D20s, 12s, 10s, 8s, 6s, 4s, etc. And you're like, wow, I don't want more dice.
Nobody ever says this. What are you talking about?
Yeah,
Everybody wants more dice all the time.
But like I really have to learn like a whole new dice thing. Well, the caveat is that it's very easy to learn how it works. You can just get a dice bot that does all the kind of subtraction because certain dice cancel each other out. Certain symbols cancel each other out in the system. So the dice bot does that for you if you want to make it even quicker. / you don't want to buy a new set of dice. But what's really great about it is there's so much in like D&D about like good DMing, GMing advice. Things like allow your players to fail forward, allow your players to have, success at a cost. Things that are not codified in D&D at all, but are just this handed down wisdom from DM to DM. And it's like, I'm always looking for games that instead just put in the rules those best practices. And this system does that, whereby you can generate successes and failures. And if you have more successes than failures, you do what you set out to do. But even if you don't, if you have what they call advantage, which is a secondary resource, you can still use it to twist the narrative. You can use it to do mechanical things, but you can also bargain with the GM. If you have 1, 2, or 3 advantage that showed up on the die, even if you didn't succeed, you can still try to say, well, okay, so I didn't turn off that panel, but can I blast it in a huff and it at least turns off the alarm that's alerting the soldiers or stormtroopers or whatever to us? And there's that, that back and forth that we saw in like Mouse Guard, which I see in a lot of games. I love anything that allows like a kind of cooperative conversation between the GM and the player to figure out how the story plays out based on what the dice say.
Yeah, Ooze, didn't your character not succeed on an attack but had to spare advantage, and so you threw water on the floor or something?
When I'd watched the PAX Oz game where everybody played Star Wars. When it had been a long time, I knew it had funky looking dice, but it'd been so long I've forgotten what they were. And I will fully admit, when I got back into playing that night after the invite, I was super excited. And then I looked at the dice roller we were using, and I was like, oh shit. That's a lot of dice. I don't remember anything that they do. But once you get into it, and I learned about halfway through our game, if you read your character sheet, it tells you what they are. Because that's a thing you can do, is use your resources wisely.
I would say, actually, the dice rollers I like them better than the physical dice because they do all
math
the
for you.
Yeah.
They do all the cancellation, yeah.
But yeah, that was a thing. Like, I was hiding behind a bar in the Katina, and I wanted to shoot, y'all will have to tell me what the name of those things were, the hog people.
Were they the Gamorreans?
Yes, those, the Gamorreans.
You know Gamora from Guardians of the Galaxy?
Yeah. But not that.
It's like that, but like pig.
It's like
and
that,
then like
but not
put
at all.
an Ian on the end of it.
And like not green.
Ian and Gamora.
So yeah,
I'm going to their wedding next year.
Yeah.
I had rolled pretty garbage as far as trying to use my blaster to shoot the Gamorreans. But I had rolled some, was it boost dice? Well, yeah, it was the boost die that gives you the advantage, correct?
All the positive dice have advantage on.
Oh yeah, so yeah. So I had rolled, I think, 2 advantages or 3 advantages, and I was thinking about, like, in all the bar fight scenes, what do you see? Like, I missed with my gun, but could I pick up a bottle and smash it and threaten them? Or, could I hold the bartender as a human shield? These things. And I was like, you know what? Or I could I ended up asking Mazz if I could knock the drinks that were on the bar off the bar into the ground, making a somewhat impediment, hopefully, for our pursuers. And I used, even though I had failed at what I had originally started to do, there was still that opportunity to go ahead and try something else. So it wasn't like playing in D&D where it's like, oh, you rolled a 12, that's it, that's your turn. At early levels. Because in early levels, if you miss your attack, that's pretty much it. You don't have a whole lot more. I'm assuming we played early levels in this too, Mazz, correct? It was level 1, right?
Yeah, they were just complete starter characters, no experience at all. Because that's another thing, is this game doesn't have levels. It has, when you get a bit further into it, It tells you to give out a certain amount of experience every session, and then a little more if you hit a story goal. So it's like a sort of milestone thing. But then you have a talent tree, and you can either buy things off this talent tree with your experience, or you can buy upgrades to your skills so you can rank them up. So there's not an actual level, and there's less disparity that way between someone just starting and someone that's been playing a little while. Because you're not like 6 levels apart or anything, because there's just no levels at all. There's just this talent tree, which I think is really cool. And it really put me in mind of a lot of online like MMORPGs.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's one thing I liked about it a whole lot. Like, you know, as early characters, you know, you're one and done. That's it. This gives you the opportunity, especially if like you're a new role player and you have that. At least for me, it was anyway. Like, I can do anything I want to. Okay, I'm going to try to do anything I want to. This gives you a little bit of leeway to do that, you know, within reason.
Exalted is kind of like that with the skill trees. I think they level up that way as well.
Yeah, I know the Firefly game that Jerika and I are playing as well. There's no levels per se. It's just you get points to invest in skills and attributes, and that's really it.
Ooh, that's one thing. And I don't know if, Mazz, if you were planning on touching on this later or not, but the characters don't really have, I mean, they have classes, but there doesn't seem to be such a disparity in classes, if that makes sense. Like, it wasn't like only one of us could use a blaster, because you know, we're all, or only one of us could heal, which I found really interesting.
Yeah, it's more that the backgrounds inform what skills you're better at, because you choose a career to have, and that makes you better at certain things. But also, you can buy, if I've read it correctly, and if you've read this and I've got it wrong, please tell me if I've got it wrong. But I'm pretty sure you can buy other trees once you have enough experience.
Oh, cool.
That's really cool.
So, yeah, every career has a set of skills, and then there's specializations within each career. I believe the core rulebook, we were playing pre-gen characters, so they're kind of like scaled down versions of these careers and specializations from the full game. But every career and every specialization comes with a set of skills that are cheaper to improve than others, but you can still go into other skills. So you can go off script, you can go off trope. It just costs you a little bit more XP wise. So if you want to be, you know, if you're like a really charismatic smuggler who's good with a blaster, you probably have points in, you know, ranged light weapons and piloting and charm or something like that. But if your character kind of, you know, starts becoming a little bit more cunning or a little bit more strategic, you could start investing into those skills. And even though it would cost you a bit more, you're not restricted.
Ooh, so in theory, if there were folks playing a game, like only one person had the pilot skill. And then, you know, you get into trouble because you're stuck somewhere and the pilot can't fly the ship. In theory, levels later, you could actually RP it where the pilot teaches somebody else to drive and gets their learner's permit and then gets their driver's license.
Absolutely, yeah. A little easy on the stick.
I think that's wonderfully balanced in compared to some of the stuff in D&D. You don't even have that. You kind of have the option in D&D, but not really.
I mean, in D&D, it kind of tends to be the case that your skills are set from the outset. Like, your class and your background give you proficiency in a certain set of skills, and those just improve. And the one thing you get to do is increase your stats. This system goes the other route where they call them characteristics, but your core 6 stats, those actually don't change throughout the game. Or they can.
There are ways, but it's takes a lot.
There are like skills and skill trees, or I even read a couple force powers that let you do like temporary increases to like your agility or something like that. But they are much harder to change. But improving your skills is quite easy. So you can constantly, you know, with enough XP, improve any one you want. I've really enjoyed this game. I like that there was so you have wounds, which is like your HP, but you also have strain, which is like your mental, like how stressed you are, essentially, both physically and mentally. Like, have you really physically exerted yourself? Or the thing I like most about it is you can do strain damage. So if you want to have the Han Solo moment where you know, use your action to lay out a diatribe to try to demoralize the stormtroopers that can't, you know, hit the broadside of a barn, you can do that and it actually like hurts them, which is a very Star Wars thing to me. Sorry, little aside there.
I liked the maps a lot. Can you tell me about the maps, Mazz?
Oh, they come with the beginner game. But there's also a really big community online that are making maps in that style, so it's quite easy to find any maps you need.
I thought they were just right.
Oh, and that's another interesting point we can bring up about combat and movement, is there are range bands. You're not counting grid squares.
Oh, it was so much better. So much better.
You have engage, which is essentially melee range. You have short range, medium range, long range, and then extreme range, I think it is.
Extreme.
You have, in your turn, you have a maneuver and an action. And you can use your maneuver to move, and you can move from one band to another, like adjacent bands with a maneuver. But if you're not moving, you can also use your maneuver to aim your weapon, and that gives you a boost dice, which is essentially some advantage on your check, which I really like as well. Sorry, I'm going off on one now, aren't I?
No, it's
okay. I think we all are. We're kind of piecemeal going over like all the different things, but all the different things are awesome. So.
Yeah. It's really up there. If we can go the dice rolling thing, if this needs to fit somewhere else, I can move it back. But like learning that you aren't rolling against the GM so much.
Yes, I really like the difficulty aspect of it.
Because once that clicked for me, along with, you know, reading at what they actually do, like a person who should do when they play a game. Like once it clicked,
Nah. Ooze, I thought we were friends. No, I'm just kidding.
Once I realized I wasn't rolling against an enemy, or I wasn't rolling against the GM, and you're basically setting up a scenario, and you're kind of rolling against yourself.
Kind of rolling against yourself.
It made more sense. Mazz, you can probably go more into that, because since you run the GM side of things and like the technicality of it. But that was the way I saw it anyway. When it made more sense when that kind of clicked.
Yeah, there's like, if you're in combat and there's an enemy, there's no AC at all. Enemies will have a soak, which will mitigate some damage, but essentially you're just rolling to succeed. And the level at which you succeed also informs how much damage you do. So you'll always have a base damage if you succeed. And then if you get more successes, you get to add more damage on, which can be quite potent if you roll quite a lot of successes. But with the like DCs and AC and things like that, you have with the negative dice, you have like the difficulty levels, and they're really simple. And it's like, is this thing easy? 1 purple dice. Is this thing a medium difficulty? 2. Is this thing hard? 3, and so on. And then if you have like a situation, an effect, you can either upgrade some of the dice to red dice, or you can add a black dice, which is a setback. So if there's like someone is taking cover, instead of worrying about how much it adds to AC and this, that, and the other, you just add a black dice. You know, that's a setback. They're taking cover. If you're fighting on a desert planet and there's a sandstorm, it's a constant effect. So everyone has to take an upgrade to the difficulty dice, so they'll make a purple one a red dice or something like that. And it's just like, I don't have to think about what number would this be or add things up or anything like that. It's so straightforward.
I like that it's color-coded.
Honestly, yes.
You know anything about me, I'm super into color, and so it's like, is this a purple difficulty? How many purples? Oh, it's a little harder. Let's put the red on. Oh, something else is happening. Blah.
Look, I'll be completely honest with y'all. I've been playing D&D now again for almost, I don't know, a couple of years. Don't ask me to pick up a D10 or a D12, because I'm going to get it wrong. Like, I will, or a D8 or a D12, sorry. Like, I will go
All
to...
I know is that, like,
the
the D8s are real pointy on two sides, and the D12s are flat on top.
I still grab wrong dice. Like, when I'm not using...
Oh, yeah.
When I'm not using Roll20 and D&D Beyond, like, I still have to look at it and go, okay, this one. So, like, yeah, color coordination, even better.
I think as far as positives go, I think it's really telling that we're all looking for continuing opportunities to play this specific system.
One last thing about the dice, that basically any other time that a game would want to involve a modifier in things, this system finds a way to do it with the custom dice, which is what makes them so core to the system. Like, they're not just added on there as a way to sell, colored plastic for a lot more money than it took to make. Like, it is very brilliantly designed to mitigate so much of the mental math you have to do in a lot of other systems.
Yay!
Yeah, sorry. I know. I keep thinking of things I like.
I mean,
it's good.
It was really good. That's why, like, it makes, once you get into it, like, the first game of anything is typically, I won't say rough, but there's a learning curve to everything. I mean, there's even a learning curve to, like, something 2D6 based, like, Dungeon World. Like, there's, especially if you're coming off a crunch number game like D&D and you go something like that, which is full narrative, there's a learning curve. But this one, honestly, was not that bad of a curve. Like, once you get into it,
I think that also speaks to Mazz as a good GM.
That's probably 100% of what it was.
True.
No, it's a good system.
I learned a term over the weekend in my stream, and I'm going to tell it to you now, Mazz. Aggressive appreciation.
Ooh, it burns.
So good.
I have learned this, and I want to say it was either Scout, Yeehaw Scout, one of our friends, or
Hi, Scout.
Or Coffee Junkie, and now I'm feeling there was a lot of missed sleep. It was one of those two wonderful people that came up with the term aggressive appreciation.
Nice.
So now you will be blessed.
It sounds very Scout to me. A lot of, with the beginner game especially, a lot of what's good about it is it's very Star Wars in that it throws you straight into the action. The first thing we did was combat.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's like baptism of fire, teach you the system straight away. But it's also, and it even says in the rulebook for that beginner game that, this is a very Star Wars thing to do. Try and start each session right into some action, get the energy up straight away.
Now that I think about it, I was trying to start to think back of all the different Star Wars intros, and there's always something going on.
They always throw you in medias res, in the heat of the action.
That's a really good point. There's no meeting in a bar. It was hide in a bar because you're being chased. How did you end up together? Doesn't matter right now. Figure it out.
Actually, The Mandalorian starts in a cantina type situation too.
Yeah.
Just to let y'all know.
Meet in a bar. See, this raised the game by, instead of you meet in a bar, you fight in a bar. You hide in a bar.
Haha.
Why are you here? Nobody knows. Not yet.
In a bar.
Keep playing. You
We'll
might
find out after the fight if you survive.
Yeah, if you live, you might find out why you're friends with these people. Good luck.
Do we want to move on to anything that maybe we weren't a big fan of in this system?
I have to say that, and I understand there's time constraints and things are happening, I would have loved to make a character in this system. And, it's something I could still do if I feel like it. But yeah, I would love to see how one goes about constructing a Star Wars hero.
Jerika, if you ever want to do that, you just name a time. We will do that.
After this, except I'm going to be sleeping, so maybe later.
So after this, sometime in the nebulous
After this
future. Yeah, after this. But yes, let's do that, because I have gone deep down the rabbit hole because I had so much fun in our first session, and I've started reading Force and Destiny, and
let's make Jedis together.
Yes,
let's be Jedis together.
Yes. Let's absolutely do that. But yeah, it is, making a character is it is a step-by-step process, and it is fairly straightforward from what I've seen. So let us learn these things together.
Cool. I don't have anything else negative to say about
There was one thing that I ditched immediately, even before your game when I started playing with my family, is that technically you should use a maneuver to unholster a weapon. And I just think that's complete trash.
Garbage.
Waste of time.
You're correct.
No one wants to waste a maneuver getting
You're
their weapon
100%
ready.
Shot
correct.
first.
Han
So
shot.
I just
There's no need for the
threw
word
that
first.
out.
We're all Grebo.
We're all Grebo. Just smoking a smoking corpse on a table.
I had one small complaint, and this may just be me. And even in comparison, this may just be all TTB RPGs. I don't know. When you first look at the skills list on here, like, there's a pile of skills. Mm-hmm. And when I first looked at it, I was like, oh, cool. What the heck is all this stuff? And, like, I'm going through, reading it, going athletics, BR. Okay, well, what's BR? And then charm, PR. What's PER? But then if you actually go look at all the stuff, I'm sure it spells it out. Like, you have, I'm sure BR is brawn or brawl.
Yes, it's brawn, and PR is presence, which are the stats that those skills. Yeah,
exactly. But when you first look at it, to me, like I said, just coming in completely, unknowing of the system, it was a little bit intimidating. But like I said, if you sit down and you have a session 0 with it, and you build a character and you go over it, I'm sure that wouldn't be nearly as bad as a thing.
In your defense, Ooze, we told you about this about 5 minutes before it started.
Yeah.
That's also true.
The Firefly game actually constrains you in the kind of, like, the number of skills you can have, and it makes me cry.
But I want to learn how to do the thing.
because it's like it's not like you always get a die or something for a given skill.
Yeah. It's the idea of being able to learn skills is also very Star Wars. Like, how many people just jumped on a plane and flew one, or a spaceship in Star Wars? Like, it wasn't.
I mean, Anakin Skywalker, but that's neither here nor there.
But like, there was a lot of people could fly spaceships. This wasn't you had to be a pilot to fly a spaceship. Like, anybody could really do it. Like, there was all kinds of people that jumped on spaceships and were like, bye, deuces.
Let's do a barrel roll. That's a good move.
Yeah.
But equally, because you've got the ranks and specialisation of it, you get the people that have their little niches and fill them. And
so if, the pilot needs to go interrogate somebody, the other person could take over flying of the ship if they needed to, just because it's something that you could do based on this and based on the fact you can learn it. But it still kind of fits to me in the Star Wars world, where, like, everybody has a blaster. Like, that wasn't an uncommon thing. Like, it wasn't just the army or just the stormtroopers. Like, everybody in the cantina or everybody on Tatooine had blasters.
I was thinking about this recently, in that Star Wars is not actually science fiction. It's really science fantasy, and that fantasy element really comes in the fact that, like, there's been tens of thousands of years since, like, the dawn of this galaxy having, like, faster than light travel, and they really haven't made any strides in several eons, because it is a fantasy world, and fantasy worlds, at least classical high fantasy worlds, obviously not all of them, but they never really change. They're always kind of stuck in a pseudo medieval Dark Ages kind of, maybe even up to Renaissance sort of world where magic can still exist and whatnot. And Star Wars is very much that way, which means they've gotten, space travel to such a point where anyone can sit in a cockpit. It's like, it's like learning how to use an iPhone. It's so intuitive that you're like, oh yeah, okay, I get it. You sit in a starfighter and it's like, oh yeah, this is fly, this is shoot, perfect, let's go.
Gonna say, look, that's exactly how I differentiate between, like, Star Trek and Star Wars. Star Trek is sci-fi. Star Wars is sci-fantasy. Absolutely.
Except if you're Jay.
Oh, God.
They're pretty much the same. He knows how to push my buttons.
Like,
Breathe.
I 100% agree with sci-fantasy. You are in space with pew-pews and magic. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, the Force is magic. It is what it is.
Big time.
So, like, it is totally fantasy. a Wild West space fantasy.
How could you not love it?
It's got all the good stuff in it. Looping back to what didn't like, and this might be outside of scope, but getting into Force and Destiny, I will say that creating a Jedi character, and maybe this would kind of make sense in world, but it is a degree more complicated than making a character in the other two systems, because the Force powers, which I thought would be, not only do they require like their own special die, there's like a white Force die where you have to roll, and every side is a different set of white and black pips that represent using either the light or dark side of the Force to power your abilities. But each Force power, and there's like 8 or so of them, has its own talent tree. So you have the talent tree for your character based on your specialization, because there's 6 different Jedi careers, each with 3 different specializations in the core book of Force and Destiny. But then there's also a separate skill tree that you can invest in for your Force powers. So I was starting to get intimidated. I think making a first level Jedi character would be easy, but growing that character out, like, I think that would be the system you'd want to play if you're more of a power gamer and want to play in the Star Wars world, because the Force-based characters definitely have a lot more bells and whistles going for them.
As you might expect.
Yeah.
Is it Final Fantasy 13, basically? Character, like this skill tree-ish?
It is not that convoluted. It is not you're not slotting materia or going through spheres or circles or whatever, but it's definitely, I feel like I might have like the buyer's remorse, you know, like it's like, oh, I could get this thing and I can deflect lasers with my lightsaber. Oh, or I could improve my ability to move things so I can move bigger objects with my mind, or, you know, there's just so many options that the choice would cause anxiety.
There is another use, though, for the Force die that we didn't cover in our game, which is I've been doing with my main game, which is a lot of fun. And at the start of every session, you roll it, and whether or not you get black pips or white pips gives you a token in that colour. And they are double-sided tokens, and you flip them, and they're white on one side, black on the other. If the token is white, it means a player can use it at any time they do a check to upgrade a skill. So if they've got like a green dice, they can upgrade it to a yellow. But if it's black, it means the GM can use it to upgrade the difficulty of the check they're doing. So there's this little ebb and flow the whole way through the game as you flip the tokens back and forth.
Yeah, because when the DM uses a black pip, it flips over to a white one for the players to use, right, Mazz?
Yes.
That's cool.
Oh, yeah, so it just goes back and forth the entire time. Like, it doesn't ever go away. It's there the whole game.
Yeah, for that session, the pool of tokens is static, and it just depends on how they're used as to what side is showing and who can use them.
So there's even strategy on when to use it. Like, when do you want to use this? Because if you use it too soon, then the GM has it to use against you later. It's just the same base back and forth. Like, that's another thing you have to keep in your back pocket, I guess.
And the narrative conceit of it is it's supposed to be the pull of the light and dark side of the Force interacting on the events of the game, which I think is really cool.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Once you've got like the basic rules down, like I didn't really introduce it until a few sessions in with my family. We wanted to get everything else solid in our heads. And the beginner's game doesn't introduce it at the start either. But then once you sort of got the dice rolls, you've done a couple of sessions and you're onto that part, it's really easy to just have those tokens there and just keep flipping them as you go.
So, wait, you said that they don't really introduce rules until like a couple of sessions in?
On the beginner game, yeah.
I think that's absolutely phenomenal. Because I know a lot of, when I first got back into 5e, I was playing with some folks that were helping me get back in, and they were going through all these rules about stuff. And I was just like, that's a lot up front. Stuff that I may never, ever, ever use. Just let me figure it out in game. I'll never forget. It was the bonus action spellcasting blah that I still don't understand. Whatever.
Mazz, how do you run a token digitally? A black and white Force token?
We don't at the moment. I've got some tokens here, and we just have them visible in the view of the web camera.
I see. I mean, that's a digital signal for sure, and that's valid.
Well, last week John stuck them on his face.
Oh,
that's what that was.
I see. It all makes sense now.
He is
Yeah,
the
and then
very
he just-
nexus of the Force.
Yeah, he turned them over.
Was it like the lick the bottle cap, stick to the forehead situation?
Yes.
Nice.
And you just have black and white tokens just chilling at
Two
your
different
place?
faces and... Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I just got some cardboard, covered one side
see.
with black
It was
duct
a
tape,
DIY.
and then
Amazing.
cut out, just some quick tokens. Because we use the online dice rollers for all the dice.
Love it.
This has definitely been one of the easiest systems I've learned, I must say. Like, I've learned to GM it in, like, a couple of sessions flat. It's that straightforward, I found it. Like, I know I've GM'd a lot of D&D, and I've played a few other different systems, like we've played some PBTA hacks and things like that. But for a brand new system with proprietary dice, for me to learn it, it's just been like, I found it really simple. Really, really simple.
I would definitely say that if you're a big like D&D fan, but maybe God damn it, I just saw Jerika's name. Stop Salad Stigma.
Stop stigma. That is my 2020 goal.
I'm sorry. I contributed.
And that is aimed directly at you, Aaron.
I know. I said some disparaging things about salad earlier today that I'm not proud of. I need to.
How was the pizza though?
It was so good. Anyway, now what was I even talking about? Darn it.
People that play D&D but want to try something else.
So yes, people that play D&D but maybe find combat a slog, but find PBTA maybe too simplistic or too hand wavy, or that there's too much power in the GM's hands as to like what outcomes are. I think this is a really nice middle ground in that it's still very much a narrative system, but there are some tactics involved in it, and there is a lot of depth of character building, which I think there's a lot of concern in a lot of PBTA games that, you're not getting cool things every level or every chance, every time you get XP, you're not getting some new cool bauble or whatever. You're not getting that character progression in a narrative game. This definitely has that, but still retains some crunch and still has a very strong narrative bent to the level of abstraction the dice rolls work at.
I agree.
And as I haven't played both, it's definitely a good middle ground.
I want to get Jay to try this because I think he'd love it.
Hey Jay, you're listening to this because you listen to all of our words.
You don't have a choice.
You should play Stir Wars, Jay.
You should play some Storp Worps.
Try having a stir word.
Step laps!
Now you get to tell us what to do, and then maybe we'll come to some sort of arrangement where we say, yes, we'll do this thing you want us to do that we don't want to do, and you'll do the thing that we want you to do.
Little give and
There you
take.
go.
Jay will make you roll to eat his whole ass.
Whoa!
Oh, I don't want to eat his whole ass.
Roll percentile dice to find out what percentage.
I'd rather fail with my whole ass than eat his whole
Despair.
ass.
An
We all
important
roll
lesson we've
despair.
learned from Kate Welch. Yeah, we rolled despair. It was all despairs. I didn't even think there was a despair on that dice. How did they get a despair on the yellow die? Do we have any final thoughts on Fantasy Flight's series of Star Wars tabletop RPG games?
I have a final thought. I want to thank all of y'all for letting me come play the game with y'all. It was
Thank you for
wonderful.
Thank you
playing
for
with
being
us.
available when we pulled you in last.
And I appreciate you having me on the pod again.
No
problem.
Hey,
Smooches, smooches, smooches.
It's always
a
good to
delight.
spend time with yous.
I see what you did there.
Thank you.
All right, should we thank all the requisite folks that we love to thank?
Please do.
First, I want to thank Mazz for running this game for us, so we had something to talk
That's
about.
me.
Thank you, Mazz.
Surprise, you've been thanked.
Aggressive appreciation.
Secondly, I want to thank Burnham, BERNUMMM, 3 M's,
The better 3M.
the better 3M, on Twitter for all of our lovely, cute little avatar faces and our social media branding. They do great work. They have commissions that I believe are currently open, so please go hit them up. They make great art. If you need some great art, they can assist. And then I want to thank Windswept for the use of our theme song, Never Stand Alone, which you've heard at the start and we'll hear at the end. And afterwards, probably a little Easter egg. It might be me singing. It might be about the amount of Jay's ass that we're willing to eat.
I'd also like to thank all of you and also Hayley, who couldn't be with us, unfortunately.
Yes.
She's not dead. She's just working hard.
Which,
Hayley, it was
tired.
I will put one last thing in, and if we can, that was the most un-Haley character I've ever seen Haley play.
Haley.
And yet,
Haley, so murderous.
Haley was great.
And yet,
so
that character danced, so it's got some little Haley sliver inside.
There's still a strong core of Haley in the center of all the shooting and murder.
I loved it, though. It was good, though. Anyway,
Yes.
we want to thank all of you as well, right?
For listening.
yeah, thank y'all.
Yes.
You know, a lot of times people like to give reviews to podcasts, and they always give 5 stars. Why? No one knows why the other 4-star options are there. But if you were to give
we
us
don't want to
review,
take your choice and agency away, so please give it as many stars as you feel like it deserves. But we would really appreciate it if you gave us 5.
I'm only giving it 1 because I can't give it no stars.
I'll go back and change my last review from 4.5 to 5.
Ooh.
Mazz doing their best Karen impression here on the podcast for you. How can you not give us 5 stars with this quality RP? With that, I want to say we were answering your cues from our collective A's. This
Was
Insight.
Check.
Here's what you don't know, or you might know about me, Mazz. I am always trying for the Easter egg. And sometimes I try too hard.